Higher taxes Americans could be facing in the new year, many unemployed folks will lose their federal unemployment benefits unless Congress extends them. But with the price tags of jobless benefits at more than $500 billion over the past 5 years, is the price too steep? Jonathan Collegio joins me now. He's the communications director for American Crossroads. Jonathan, thanks for coming back on the show. Listen, we got tonight that the president's opening bid in these fiscal cliff talks was extending these jobless benefits for another year. So he's doubling down on his policy. He wants more jobs benefits. What's the cost of that? And do you think that it's a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, there are two things. There are short-term costs of how it's going to really poison the well in these negotiations. I mean, imagine, here we are, we're talking about deficit reduction, and the president is proposing new spending on top of all the other spending that we're trying to cut. It'd be like Republicans going into the deficit reduction talks, talking about, another dividends tax cut or something like that. It's just a very, very poisonous way to start sincere negotiations between the two sides. But the second thing that's important here is how we're viewing these jobless benefits, and the administration is framing them in terms of job creation. That's not what they are. Well, that's not what they're for. They're for temporary assistance to people. Yeah.
To that point, the CBO came out and said, this is a study they did. They said that extending these jobless benefits would create 300,000 jobs. What? I mean, I had to read it twice to figure out what the heck they were talking about. And it still made no sense, frankly, to me. Explain the contorted logic at work here.
What they're saying is that by putting money into the pockets of unemployed people, they're going to be able to spend it on rents, they're going to be able to spend it on consumer goods, and that's going to create jobs in the real estate industries and the retail industries. The problem is that it doesn't take into account that if people had to look for jobs, they would also be doing that. It's kind of double counting the money. And the difficult thing here is that when we're talking about unemployment as an economic benefit, we're not looking at the point of what this program is, and that's to temporarily help people who are having a hard time finding jobs. This is not France. This is not Greece, where we have a whole class of people who are permanently on the government dole. This is the United States of America, where we temporarily help people. And if we're looking at these unemployment programs as economic benefits, we're really kind of going in that European direction, and I don't think that that's where this debate needs to be.
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the Obama administration's treatment of food stamps. A range of social benefits where not only do they make them available and then extend how long they're available for, but they also advertise them. It's a good thing to get this aid. You need this federal aid. Why not? Think of it, they have an ad for the food stamp program where they describe it as a diet plan, for goodness sakes. This is a wholesale change in the way Americans think about being on the dole, about getting federal assistance.
Yeah, it's a decline in industriousness that we see from that Charles Murray book, where he talks about in the Coming Apart, which talks about how there's a declining industriousness among folks in the working class, and it talks about how it's not only food stamps, it's not only that we've extended the temporary unemployment benefit every year since 2008, so it's not even a temporary thing anymore, it's becoming a permanent thing, but there's also increases in permanent disability claims from Social Security, right, and the list goes on, and we're really facing kind of I think a tipping point here, where we could be going in the way of France or in the way of Greece, where we have a permanent class of people who are on the government dole, and that's not a good place for America to be.
And let's talk about those social costs, because it's not just the cost of the government, which we frankly can't afford right now, but it's also the cost to society of encouraging people to opt out, to sit at home, to be on the couch, to watch TV, to do something other than work productively in the economy.
Yeah, one of the news sources that was talking about this policy quoted a guy who was planning on the unemployment benefits lasting until the early part of 2013, and now that he knows that they might not, he is looking for a job.
You can see it. I mean, the reality is unemployment is no fun. I got to tell you, I have been on unemployment benefits. I've been on that line back when they had lines and you didn't do it online, and it's embarrassing, but at the end of the day, if you're on it too long, it works against itself, in my view. Do you agree?
It does work against itself, because if you allow it to last, that it distorts the incentives to work, and that's what that news story. I mean, it's not a laughing matter that somebody doesn't have a job, but you can see the distortions in the incentives when somebody is, planning on the unemployment lasting for another 6 months, so they're not looking for a job, or at least they're just kind of going through the motion of looking for a job in order to continue getting the benefit.
I tell you, I got off as soon as I could, and I was glad of it. Glad to have the money, glad to get off the dole.
And that's
everybody
what it's for,
has that option, but I have to tell you, we've got to do something different in this country. Jonathan, thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And when we come back, should entitlement reform